Please buy me a bag.
Arriving late at night at our house, my 6-year-old granddaughter stood in front of the entrance, making a request. "What's going on? And you're wearing such tattered clothes?" As I inquired, I remembered that the next day was the entrance ceremony. Deep wrinkles were etched on my husband's forehead as he stood beside me.
"There's no way I'm buying."
Hearing my husband's loud voice, my granddaughter despaired and burst into tears. "How could you say such a thing?" I tried to reprimand him, but to my surprise, my husband made an even more astonishing move. We, as a couple, have a son named Bob. He's married and at 27 and the father of a 6-year-old child. The child's name is Noah, our first grandchild, but we've hardly seen them. I wonder if our son, his wife, and Noah are all doing well.
It seems like our daughter-in-law is busy with work. We shouldn't interfere.
We felt apologetic that Bob's wife, Sarah, was working because he hadn't yet settled into a steady job. It's not easy for us to just casually say we want to see our grandchild. Although we usually watched over them like that, we should have gone to see our son's family at least once. We never imagined things would turn out like this.
I am going to be a father.
7 years ago, when Bob was a sophomore in college, he suddenly confessed that his girlfriend was pregnant. "What did you say?" We were furious with our son for putting such emotional strain on his partner. Upon hearing the story, we learned that his partner was a university administrator, 12 years older than him.
We got close while discussing school procedures. But Sarah said today would be okay.
Don't blame others. If you had treated your partner properly, things wouldn't have gone out of order.
We scolded our son and hurriedly went to apologize to Sarah's family with a gift.
"I'm truly sorry for what happened to your precious daughter."
Our son says he wants to become a university professor, but we'll make him drop out and work. Her parents greeted our heartfelt apologies with beaming smiles.
"Bob doesn't need to drop out of university. I'll support him, so it's okay. I want young Bob to become a great professor."
And even her parents said, "Our daughter is so picky about men that she's 34 now. Bringing home such a promising young boyfriend."
"None of my friends have a young husband who will become a professor in the future. I'll show those who laughed at me for being behind the times."
With that declaration, Sarah laughed loudly throughout the room. Then, our son and his girlfriend immediately got married and had a flashy wedding, inviting over 100 guests from the bride's side. The following year, our granddaughter Noah was born safely, and everything went smoothly. But still, we couldn't help but feel guilty about Sarah getting pregnant before us. Even after my granddaughter was born, my son was still a student. My husband and I supported him financially, assisting with expenses for every event, New Year, birthday, and Christmas. Then, one day when my granddaughter turned 1.5.
Raising a child costs money, and we're struggling to make ends meet. Our family might starve.
Out of the blue, Bob came to our house asking for help. After discussing it, my husband and I decided to send our son and his wife $1,000 each month for living expenses. It was a significant amount, but I thought I could manage by working part-time. I wonder if they are all right?
Bob lacks initiative.
Filled with anxiety, I yearned to see Sarah and my granddaughter, but Sarah was busy juggling work and childcare, and I never seemed to find the right timing. Even when Noah turned 2 and Bob entered graduate school, we still couldn't meet our granddaughter. Thinking about Sarah's struggles to support the family, I couldn't bring myself to say, "I want to see my grandchild." I suppressed my desire to see Noah. Surely, I told myself, if my son becomes a professor, I'll be able to see them. That's what I convinced myself. Looking back now, neither this endurance nor the guilt was necessary at all. About 4 years passed, and it was March, when the cherry blossom buds were swelling. Late one night, the doorbell rang at our house. Who could it be? Suspicious, my husband and I opened the door.
Please buy me a bag.
To our surprise, our granddaughter was standing at the entrance, making a request. Noah. What's going on? She was painfully thin, with unkempt hair. I was taken aback as I rushed over, remembering that the next day was the elementary school entrance ceremony. My granddaughter collapsed in tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Then, my husband, seeing Noah rubbing her forehead against the ground, shouted,
There's no way I'm buying.
Hearing his loud voice, our granddaughter looked up with a despairing expression and wailed, Why would you say that? As I tried to intervene, my husband continued without hesitation.
We don't need to buy now. I already have a bag at home.
Huh? Surprised by my husband's words, my granddaughter stopped crying abruptly. According to her, he had already bought the bag for her. It was news to me, and my mind was in turmoil, but it was still a cold night in March. Let's go inside anyway, it's getting cold. I invited Noah into our home and decided to listen to her situation.
Mom and Dad said if I asked Grandpa and Grandma, they'd get me a bag.
After finishing the hot milk I offered, my granddaughter, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, told me everything that had happened. For example, she had never received any gifts since she was born. Her parents went out every night, leaving her alone at home. She was always dressed in the same clothes. She didn't have clothes or a bag for the entrance ceremony. They gave me an entrance celebration gift, but I didn't use it.
They're squandering the money we gave for our granddaughter. This is outrageous.
As we trembled with anger, our granddaughter responded with a bewildered expression.
Mom and Dad said, Grandpa and Grandma are stingy and won't give us presents. If you want a bag, ask them.
What the hell? My husband, perhaps at the peak of his anger, got up suddenly and went upstairs to the study. Seeing this, my granddaughter looked bewildered. I'm sorry, maybe he got angry thinking about Noah. As I tried to reassure my granddaughter, he came downstairs in a hurry. Oh, he's such a busy person. Wait, huh? Looking at my husband, he had a bag in his hand. Moreover, it was a lavender-colored bag with cute flower embroidery.
Grandpa, is that?
Yes, indeed. I've had it for a while.
Noah ran to her grandfather and hugged him. He explained that he had fallen in love with the bag he saw on his way home from work and made an impulse purchase. He thought he wouldn't give it to her anyway, so he had hidden it in the back of the closet in the study.
It's cute, isn't it? With flowers. Perfect for Noah.
Blushing, he helped Noah put on the backpack. Come to think of it, I fell in love with this man's awkward kindness. I couldn't help but smile and look at Noah.
Thank you.
My granddaughter jumped for joy, but in the next moment, she uttered a terrifying word with an innocent face.
If you ask like this, Grandpa and Grandma are like ATMs.
ATMs? I couldn't believe my ears when I heard the words coming out of my 6-year-old granddaughter's mouth.
Yeah, Mom and Dad always say that.
My husband, who had been gazing affectionately at our granddaughter's bag, suddenly had a sharp glint in his eyes.
Would you mind telling us more about that?
Noah, seemingly unaware, smiled as she told us about the situation at home. According to her, her stepmother had been cold to her, saying, "I only got pregnant to marry a young man. You're worthless." My son also often said things like, "Having a child increases your credibility at university." Parents are like ATMs in their daily conversations. What the hell? How despicable. My husband and I were furious and determined to get revenge. Immediately, my husband started making phone calls everywhere. Meanwhile, I also contacted my son as if nothing had happened. Noah came to our house, but she's tired and fell asleep. I'll send her directly to the entrance ceremony tomorrow. Bob seemed momentarily flustered, but sensing that I wasn't suspicious, he quickly relaxed. Thus, preparations were underway to teach our son and his wife a lesson. And then came the entrance ceremony the next day. Noah said she didn't have proper clothes, but since she had bought a dress requested by Sarah 2 months ago, she wore that and left the house. When we met up with my son and his wife in front of the elementary school, I immediately broached the subject. "Sarah, you've done a wonderful job raising our granddaughter, despite your busy work schedule. Why don't you both take a trip together?" Husband, Bob has graduated from graduate school and become an associate professor this spring. When I handed them a 5-day trip voucher and a brand name bag, my son and his wife's eyes lit up with joy. In fact, on the night Noah visited our house, my husband hastily made travel reservations to separate our son's family from our granddaughter. It was a sudden plan, and we were worried if it would work, but they immediately called the university and lied, saying our child is hospitalized and got time off. "Don't worry, I'll take care of Noah while you're away." As I smiled and hugged my granddaughter, they were already preoccupied with thoughts of the trip. And as soon as the entrance ceremony was over, they left on their trip, leaving their granddaughter behind. Have fun, but remember, hell awaits you. I squeezed my granddaughter's hand tightly, renewing my determination. And a week later, my son and his wife returned home with beaming faces. My husband and I welcomed them as they came to pick up Noah. "Did you enjoy your last trip of your life?" To my question, Bob and Sarah looked puzzled.
Last trip?
What's going on all of a sudden?
They entered the house, still giggling, and sat down on the living room chairs.
What's going on is our line.
Starting with my husband's words, I laid out the credit card statements in front of them. The usage history included purchases of brand name bags, accessories, dinners at luxury hotels. Their extravagant spending was evident. When I went to your house to get Noah's change of clothes, everything was left out on the table. It was an extravagant display of luxury when I saw it. Seemingly realizing they were in trouble, my son and Sarah exchanged glances.
Well, maybe it's something we bought for a friend.
That's impossible. We see through all your lies. I opened up the family computer and showed them the listing history on a flea market app. There, we found clothes and toys we had bought for our granddaughter being sold as new.
You were planning to resell them and keep the money instead of giving them to Noah, weren't you?
My husband scolded them harshly.
Maybe it was just a misunderstanding?
Don't play dumb. Next, I pulled up my daughter-in-law's social media screen on the computer. There were posts about living an elegant life with the associate professor, showing off their luxurious lifestyle. I also found my son's blog, titled Becoming a Professor with Great Cost Performance. How to gain status without much effort. In essence, he was writing about how to suck up to his parents.
I thought you had a noble goal in your research, but were you really thinking about such things?
My husband's anger flared, and they both looked like they were about to cry.
It was just a joke for some relaxation.
Yes, yes. Childcare is busy, and I needed some retail therapy and social media for a change.
The childish excuses from the young couple. That's also a lie. We know you weren't properly raising your child. In fact, while Bob and Sarah were on their trip, my husband and I had investigated by leaving our granddaughter at a nursery and asking around the neighborhood. The kindergarten teacher told us there were only 2 changes of clothes, and the neighbors seemed to know that Noah was left alone until late at night. If there's a trial, I'd like to testify, the teacher and neighbors offered.
You've got it all wrong.
My son retorted with a defiant attitude, while his wife nodded beside him. With a heavy sigh, I took out a recording device and pressed the play button.
Going on a trip is lucky, right? They give us money every month, so they're really useful ATMs.
Exactly. We have to squeeze money out of Grandma and Grandpa using Noah.
I didn't think I needed a kid, but surprisingly, they're quite useful. I'll let them live as long as they don't become a nuisance.
The conversation and loud laughter echoed from the recording device, causing the young couple to turn pale.
How did you record this conversation?
I rigged the bottom of the bag you were given as a gift. I planted a bug in it. It's set up to send everything to my smartphone in real time, so I hear everything.
Isn't that going too much?
Throwing the bag aside, Sarah glared at me. Going too much? Which one of us went too much? Both the recordings and the results of the investigation have been submitted to the court through our lawyer. We're preparing to become Noah's legal guardians. As I declared loudly, they started making a commotion with shocked faces.
What the hell are you doing, interfering like this?
It's just a little luxury, geez.
Ignoring their words, I made a call on my smartphone. Yes, I'd like to speak to the honorary professor of your university. Please hurry up. Upon hearing honorary professor, my son answered the phone with round eyes. The professor on the other end had been the one who guided my son towards becoming a professor.
Hello?
As Bob timidly spoke, loud yelling could be heard even from a distance.
Can someone who can't even take care of their own child nurture others at the university? Don't ever show your face here again.
The professor said and hung up.
Hold on. Professor. Professor.
Bob's path to becoming a professor, which had seemed smooth sailing, was abruptly closed, causing him to panic. But soon, the ringing stopped, and the university dean came on the line. Please hand the phone to Sarah, he said, and this time, my daughter-in-law nervously took the phone.
While we turned a blind eye to your marriage to a student out of love, given the current situation, I doubt your qualifications as a university staff member. You're fired.
Her boss came the cold voice of the dean through the smartphone.
This is outrageous.
But the call from the dean was cut off, leaving a desperate Sarah, who resorted to her last resort.
My parents won't stay silent. They forced me into pregnancy.
Snorting, she began dialing on her own smartphone.
Mom? Listen to me. Bob's parents are. What? Disowning? Why all of a sudden?
Her eyes widened as she held her smartphone in one hand. In fact, we had already contacted her parents. Turned out, her parents had also been unable to see their granddaughter and had been providing financial support. When I emailed them photos of the credit card statements, Sarah's parents were furious. They said, we're disowning them and sided with us.
This means we've lost everything.
We were finally living a good life.
Dad, Mom, we got carried away. I'm sorry.
Please forgive us.
The suddenly timid couple pleaded with us, tears in their eyes.
Handling a child's life so casually won't be forgiven.
We'll take care of Noah. You'll money back the full $12.5 million we've given you for living expenses, university, and graduate school tuition.
Please, have mercy.
As the children slumped in despair, police officers burst through the door. We had contacted the police beforehand, just before Bob and Sarah returned home.
I was going to become a professor.
We were supposed to live lavishly with an invincible status.
The sobbing couple was taken away in a police car, leaving only falling cherry blossoms behind. Subsequently, they underwent trial. With no support from Bob's or Sarah's families and having lost their friends, even if they were released from jail, they had no one to rely on. It's clear they'll have to go into debt to repay the $12.5 million. But it's all their own fault, and I have no sympathy for them. Left with no one to help them, they'll spend each day living in fear. On the other hand, Noah is thriving. My husband finds joy in selecting clothes and bags for his granddaughter.
I love you, Grandpa, Grandma.
I'll continue to protect her radiant smile like blooming flowers. How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.